is what I thought. If the 14th of Nisan falls on Shabbos, we must remove everything before Shabbos. These are the words of Meah. But the comments say everything is removed at its usual time. Eliezer ben Zadik says Truma must be removed before Shabbos and Cholent at its usual time. If someone is going to slaughter his Pesach offering to circumcise his son or to die at a betrothal feast at the house of his father-in-law, and he remembers that he has comments at home, he is able to return, remove it, and then return to his mitzvah, he must go back, remove it, but if not, he nullifies it in his heart. If he is on the way to save people from a marauding troop, from a river, from bandits, from a fire, or from a collapsed building, he nullifies it in his heart. If it was but to establish a voluntary resting place, he must return at once. Similarly, if someone left Yerushalayim and remembered that he had sacrificial meat in his hand, and he passed Sofim, he burns it where he is. But if not, he must return and burn it before the temple with the wood of the altar fire. And how much chumetz or meat must be returned? Rameya says in either case when there is as much as an egg. Rabbi Yehuda says in either case when there is as much as an olive. But the Kachamim say the sacrificial meat as much as an olive, but for chametz as much as an egg. Okay, good.
Okay, Perek Daled. Now this is a great Mishnah actually uh, for things other than Pesach. We'll see it in a second, but this is like at the root of so many discussions about minhag, about what minhag to keep, where, when, etc. And the basic of the Mishnah is talking about the fact that there was a practice in many places. Not on Erev Pesach, we already stopped doing melacha from Chatzos Hayom. From midday, everyone agrees there's no melacha thereafter. That's the zman of the Korban Pesach, and therefore you're not involved in melacha anywhere.
Right.
Okay, but what about the morning up until then? So some places had a minhag that we add onto the Isser Melacha right up until the morning, and as a protection for the rest of the day. Okay. Makom shenahagu la'asos melacha ba'arvei Pesachim ad chatzos osin. Makom shenahagu shelo la'asos ein osin. Okay, so that obviously is simple, is that whatever your minhag is in your place, that's what you do. ההולך ממקום שעושים למקום שאין עושים, או ממקום שאין עושים למקום שעושים, נוספים עליו חומר מקום שיצא משם, וחומר מקום שהלך לשם. Okay, but so the only question is when a person travels from between two different places that are different minhagim, and your rule of thumb is that you keep the chumras of both places. So if you come from a place where that doesn't do malacha and you end up in a place that does do malacha, or vice versa, you do not do malacha. That's your thing about and actually Rav Heber had a whole shir about what's about minhagim, and a lot of it just comes down to the fact that the only thing that there is a minhag makom. Um, and when you have a place like, what do you do with a place like Ramat Beit Shemesh, where you've got people where you don't have a minhag makom? All you've got is people who come from Europe, and who come from the Middle East, and people who come from wherever, all different kinds of people. So the minhag makom then gets defined by whichever community you belong to. So if you're a member of Avat Zion community, then you keep their minhagim. That's that's your halacha. And yeah, so that's there's a lot to be learned from this particular Mishnah. But
Yeah, this
and a person shouldn't do anything that's connected the minhag makom because it causes machlokes. People say, "Hey, we don't do that here. What are you coming and doing this here for?"
this is probably more prevalent in the time that the Mishnah was written, in the time of the shtetls and things like that. But here we have people from all over the world, so it's a whole different.
Right. So there was a lot less mobility, in those times. People were in their place, and if you wanted to travel, it was a big deal to travel. You didn't just hop in a plane for a week and go somewhere. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Bo. Similarly, hamolich peros shvius mimakom shekalu lemakom shelo kalu. Okay. So back just to quickly refresh the halacha of shvius is that you're allowed to have produce from the field as long as and it's free and it's got kedusha as long as the produce is freely available in the field. But eventually, it's going to kind of dry up, or there's going to be nothing left of it on the trees, and That's the point at which you've got to do beer. You've got to be mafkir it again, and you can take possession of it again, but you have to go through the process of being mafkir it. Okay, so. Um, so obviously, if you're in one place where the grapes have stopped growing and now you've got a bunch of grapes in your house that you took from Hefker, you've got to take them out and be mafkia them. Okay, but what happens if you've been traveling and you've got a bunch of grapes that you took in one place where there are plenty grapes in the field, and you arrive in a place where they've already done beer on their grapes, and there's nothing left in their place. So what you're going to do, or the other way around, if you were traveling from a place where the grapes were done to the place where the grapes are still on the field, and you still haven't done beer on your grapes, okay, um, or chayev lebayr, one way or another, you have to do beer even whether
Right.
it's for the place that you're from or the place that you're going to, you have to take the chumrah, the more machmir position of both places. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Omrim Lo, Tzei v'havei lach af ata. So this little statement of Rabbi Yehuda is rather interesting because it isn't 100% clear what he's talking about. He's And so the commentaries say that this is actually referring to a case that's in Maseches Shvius. I don't know if you remember this one, but when there were three different types of produce in one pickle jar.
Uh-huh.
They'd all been
Okay.
put together, and the three different species had different times of beer. And there was a machlokes. There was one Tana. Let me just see what the positions were. I remember Rabbi Yeshua had the most amazing perspective. I think it was Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua usually is the, yeah, Rabbi Eliezer says the first one. As soon as the first one is chayav beer, all of them are chayav in beer because there's a taste of the Isser and the Heter. Rabbi Yeshua takes the opposite position and says only when the last one is chayav beer. He sees it all as one mixture because there's some heter in it, which is an incredible position. It's one of these sort of halachic oddities where, according to the Tana, you only have to a tam heter is matir the whole mixture, which is quite incredible. And then there's Rabban Gamliel who comes and says each one individually. Don't worry about the time, just do the beer on the individual things. And this is the position that Rabbi Yehuda is taking. He is siding with Rabban Gamliel over here and saying, "Tzei b'avei afata, afata. Don't make me do beer on this one over here. Even though the first one is chayav beer, I'll be mavaya that one, but the other ones you can also take from the field, and and therefore and therefore he's allowed, he doesn't have to be on that. Okay, so I'm not sure why Rabbi Yehuda is tacked into this mission. It's a little out of context, but since we're talking about the situation of Biur, he is in this mission over here. So there are other perishim about what Rabbi Yehuda is saying, but I'm not going to dive too deep into that.
Okay.
Okay. Mishnah Gimel. Makom shenagu limkor behema daka lagoyim. Okay, what's the problem that we're trying to deal with over here is selling animals to non-Jews. Now, first of all, what animal? Everyone seems to agree, as the Mishnah is going to say in a minute. They agree that you're not allowed to sell large animals to non-Jews. Now, why is that? It's not that we're trying to be mean to non-Jews. It's that there's a gezerah um, because large animals are typically used for work in the field,
Right.
and there's a concern that the non-Jew will ask the Jew, please, can you show me this animal working? And it's going to be close to Shabbos, and the Jew wants to close the deal. The guy doesn't care if Shabbos or not Shabbos. Then he wants to close the deal, so he'll say, come, cow, let's go. And he's going to think, oh, I'm not doing any malacha. The cow's just doing the malacha, and all I'm doing is telling it, come, plow, come, plow. And it listens to his voice because it's his owner and is familiar with the voice. That is a malacha d'oraisa, getting your animal to plow. Okay, so Chachamim, so they said you're not allowed to sell large. Maybe there was some master shahaya that they saw this happening and they were horrified and said, okay, that's it. We are no longer allowed to sell large animals to non-Jews. Um, and there's some places that took on a chumrah of also not selling the small animals because of the situation with the large animals.
That also goes on to the mission that we had about, the time of day. Got so, depending on where you come from, where you are, the minhag in this particular
Right. So,
case.
so that's why we're talking about it here. Exactly. So what's your makom shenagu limkor behem dakal goyim mochrin makom shenagu shelo limkor ein mochrin. So exactly, yes, there. That's the halacha. You follow the minhag makom. V'chol makom ein mochrin lahem behem agasa. But in all places you may not sell them the large animals. Agalim, that's calves. Siachim, which is young horses, foals. Shleimin ushvurin, and it doesn't matter whether they are young or old, whether they are healthy or injured.
Okay.
And because, like, obviously the injured ones, they're not going to be plowing with at the time. Although Rabbi Yehuda is matir b'shur, he says, I'm not concerned about an injured animal because they're not going to be doing the plowing. So sell them an injured animal, I don't care. And Ben Beseira matir basus, and Ben Becerra says there's no reason that we should ever have made a gezerah on a horse because horses are not used for plowing. Horses are used for riding. And yeah, okay, we're not allowed to ride horses on Shabbos, but why don't we ride horses on Shabbos? That's a gezerah d'Rabbanan. It's not that they're carrying you in the Rishus Harabim. That's not the malacha that they're doing. Because we chai nosayas atzmo. A person carries himself. It's not like the horse is carrying the person. We say chai nosayas atzmo. A person carries himself. So we don't blame it on the horse. So why don't we ride horses on Shabbos? Is because he might be out riding and he might come to break a branch off to use as a swish to get the horse to move. So that itself is a derabanan. So Ben Beseira doesn't see any reason to make a gezerah there. However, halacha does not follow either Rabbi Yehuda or Ben Beseira in these cases. It's according to the Tanna Kamma. Okay,
Good.
that's
Olive.
Well, let's finish off Erevin first, just so we can get our bookmarks in the right place. So last Mishnah in Erevin.
Okay, which is
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
That's as well. If a sheriff was found in the temple, a Kohen may remove it with his sash so as not to prolong the presence of the tomb of contamination. These are the words of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. Rabbi Yehuda says with wooden tongs so as not to increase the contamination. From where do we remove it? From the temple, the antechamber, between the antechamber and the altar. These are the words of Shimon ben Anas. Rabbi Akiva says the area for which one incurs a kares for an additional transgression and a sin offering for unintentional transgression, and there we must remove it. But all other areas we must cover with a pot. Reb Shimon says, wherever the sages have granted dispensation, they have given you what is yours, and for what they have not permitted, except that which is a rabbinical decree. Okay.
Alhamdulillah, Masechus Erevin. Okay, Pesachim Aleph Aleph.
Okay. Okay. The evening of the 14th of Nisan, we must search for chametz by the light of the candle. Any place into which chametz is not brought does not require a search. So why have the sages said 2 rows in a wine cellar must be searched? The kukamim referring to a place to which chametz is brought. Ben Shammai says 2 rows over the entire front of the wine cellar must be searched, but Beis Hillel says the 2 outer rows, which are the uppermost. We need not be concerned with that a weasel may have dragged comets from house to house or from place to place. For if so, then we would have to be concerned with courtyard to courtyard, from town to town, and there will be no end to the matter. Okay. That which he leaves over, he should place in hiding. But that's wrong. Right.
That's
That's
yeah.
the next one. Okay. All right. So that stops over there. Okay.
So let's go to Erevin Aleph Av.
Okay. Um, Um, the poles of which they spoke, the height is 10 to fakum. With their width and thickness are any size. Rabbi Yosha says their width is 3 fists. We may use anything as poles, even a living person. I think here, let's see, a living being, but Yossi forbids it. And transmit tomb contamination as a tomb cover, but Rabbi considers it uncontaminated. And we will write bills of divorce on it, but Rabbi Yossi invalidates it. A caravan which is made a camp in a valley and surrounded with animal trappings, they are may carry within it, provided the barricade is 10 tefachim high and the gaps do not exceed the walled portion. Any gap which is 10 arms high, wide is permitted for as an entrance greater as an entrance for greater than this is prohibited. Okay,
Mm.
they may, that's it, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
and we are to Meister. Okay, hey base. Karen Mavai was brought up to Yerushalayim from a distance of a day's journey in any direction, and which were its limits? Eilat in the south, Akravet in the north, Lod in the west, and the Yarden and Yarden in the east. When the produce became plentiful, they decreed it should be redeemed near the wall, and it was stipulated that whenever they wished, the procedure would be restored to its former state. Rabbi Yossi says this condition was made after the destruction of the temple, and the condition that once the temple is rebuilt, the procedure would be restored to its former state. Karen Ravai, Beit Shammai said it's not liable to the fifth or to beer, but Reb Hillel, Beis Hillel says it is. Beit Shammai says it is liable to parrot and liable to olia, but they're redeemed from themselves. But Beis Hillel says it all goes to the wine press. How do they redeem net to Ravai? He places the basket before three and says, how much does a person want to redeem for himself for a seller with a provision that the expenses be borne by his household? And he puts down the money and says, anything gathered from this is redeemed with this money, so many baskets for a seller. Okay.
Okay.
And neither. Okay, we have yes, Dalit.
Yes.
Regarding an examination cloth that was placed under the pillow and blood was found on it, the stain is round, it's tahor, but if elongated, it's tameh. These are the words of Eliezer Tzaddik. So I went the wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. All right. Here we go. A woman who was attending to her needs and saw blood, Ramea says if she was standing, she is tameh, but if she was sitting, she's tahor. Rabbi Yossi says either way, she's tahor. A man and a woman attended to their needs, urinating into the basin, and blood was found upon the urine. Rabbi Yossi rules her tahor, but Rabbi Shimon rules her tameh, since it is not lawful for a man to discharge blood. Rather, the presumption of blood is that it came from the woman. Okay. Okay. Zion Aleph. These blemishes, whether permanent or temporary, render a man unfit. To them must be added the case of a man, one whose head is wedge shaped, or turnip shaped, or hammer shaped, or whose head is sunken and whose occiput is flat. Hunchbacks. But Yehuda declares them fit, but they can come and say they're unfit. A bald-headed man is unfit. Who is regarded as a bald-headed man? One who ever has no ring of hair circling from ear to ear. If he has, he is fit. If he has no eyebrows, or if he has but one eyebrow, he is the given mentioned in the Torah. Rabbi Yossi says it is one whose eyebrows hang down. Rabbi Kanina ben Antigono says one who has two backs and two spines. The charam is unfit. What is a charam? One who can paint both his eyes with one movement. But his eyes are set high and both eyes are set low. And one eye is set high or one eye is set low, or he focuses on the lower story and the upper story simultaneously, or one who cannot bear the sun, or one who has unmatched limbs, or watery eyes is unfit. One whose eyelashes fell out is unfit for reasons of unsightliness. Okay. Look at scripture over there. Okay, and we have over here, Adal Ches. If one divorces his wife because she is an aloneness, Rabbi Yehuda says he may not take her back, but the comments say he may take her back. If she was married to another and had children from him, and she demands a ketubah, Rabbi Yehuda says he says to her, "Silence. Your silence is better for you than your speech." If one sells himself and his children to a Gentile, he is not to be redeemed, but the children are to be redeemed after the death of their father. He who sells his field to a Gentile must buy and bring first fruits from it for the sake of the general good. And victims of damages are paid by assessing for them the superior fields, lenders with fields of medium quality, and a woman's ketubah with fields of the poorest quality. Okay, right? That's it. Okay.
Okay. Done.
I have a